cessation of company in Singapore work? Despite its size, Singapore has a booming business economy. In fact, there are more than 500,000 companies registered in Singapore at the moment. But while many businesses are thriving, there are still some business owners out there that are struggling to stay afloat and might even need to apply for the cessation of their companies. Whether due to the global pandemic that hit in 2019 or other financial issues, the cessation of a company in Singapore is an unfortunate but inevitable process for some. In the long run, business owners may decide that closing a Singapore company makes more financial sense than hanging on to a dying enterprise. If you're looking into how to close down your Singapore business, our consultants at Premia TNC can help. Keep watching to learn everything you need to know about closing a business in Singapore. Firstly, you need to know the differences between a wind-up and strike-off. In Singapore, there are two methods of closing a company: winding up and striking off. There are a few notable differences between the two. Generally, striking off a company in Singapore is the more affordable and faster way to close a company. Striking off is the last step to be taken once you've tied up any loose ends in your business, such as getting rid of all assets and liabilities. This process is best for companies that are dormant or small. Sometimes, however, you may face other issues when closing a company due to liabilities. In such a situation, you'll need to wind up or liquidate your company. Not only does this process take a lot more time, it is also done much more formally than a strike-off. Now that you know a bit about the two different methods, let's break them down in more detail. How to strike off a company in Singapore. The first method of closing a company in Singapore is a strike-off. In this situation, a director or secretary of the company will apply to the Accounting and Corporate Regulatory Authority, also known as the ACRA, for a strike-off. The ACRA requires businesses to meet the following criteria in order to strike off their company: not commencing business transactions since incorporation or cessation of its business activities, having no existing liabilities or assets, having written consent of the strike-off from shareholders, submitting the last audit account and unaudited balance sheet to the IRAs, having no outstanding tax liabilities, issues, or matters, having no outstanding central provident funds for employees, canceling the GST registration, having no outstanding debts, having no outstanding court proceedings or legal charges. Once the ACRA confirms that your company meets the requirements, a company officer or secretary will need to submit an online application for a strike-off. After this step, the ACRA will publish the name of the company in the Government Gazette. 60 days later, they will strike it off the register. Note that you are only able to complete the final strike-off if the government doesn't have any objections to your application. If they do, you'll have 2 months to resolve the issues and resubmit your application. Next, how to wind up a company in Singapore. Winding up a company essentially means converting your company's assets into cash, then using that cash to pay off outstanding liabilities. Thereafter, any remaining assets are distributed among shareholders and creditors. There are 3 ways you can wind up a company in Singapore. Let's take a closer look at each of these methods. The first method is the members' voluntary wind-up. If your company's directors feel that they can pay off their debts within a year of closing the company, they may want to go with this option. In this situation, you'll need to complete the following steps. Have a majority of directors agree to a declaration of solvency. Hold an extraordinary general meeting of members to adopt wind-up resolutions and appoint liquidators. Meet the publicity and solvency requirements. Pass a resolution for wind-up. File the wind-up with the ACRA in 7 days and advertise the wind-up in a Singapore newspaper within 10 days. Notify the IRAs of the wind-up. Receive a tax clearance from the IRAs and set a final meeting date. Once the company has wound up its affairs, the appointed liquidator will create a document outlining how the winding up process took place and how the company disposed of its property. After the liquidator completes this task, he or she will hold a meeting. Thereafter, he or she will file a return with the official receiver and the ACRA, proving that the meeting took place. The company is considered to be officially dissolved 3 months after the company files its declaration. Keep in mind that the ACRA can annul the dissolution in the 2 years following the wind-up if they find any issues with the process. The second method is the creditor's voluntary wind-up. If your company has creditors who believe that the company cannot continue operations due to its liabilities, they can opt for a creditor's voluntary winding up. This type of wind-up usually takes place because a company can't pay its debts within 1 year of commencing a wind-up. In this situation, creditors can decide whether or not a company should be wound up and also choose the liquidator for the process. Finally, they will hold a creditors' meeting that must be advertised in a Singapore newspaper at least 1 week before it takes place. Finally, the third method is the wind-up by court order. Sometimes, winding up a business occurs not because business members want to close the company, but because another party asked the court to liquidate the company. Any liquidator, company creditor, or judicial manager can apply for the liquidation of a company. In order to wind up a business by court order, the applicant must file an originating order. This can be caused by insolvency, failure to lodge statutory reports, failure to hold statutory meetings, or illegal activity. These 3 methods of closing of a company in Singapore are subject to change according to the latest requirements by the local authorities or any amendment of the latest regulations. The cessation of a company in Singapore can be made simple with Premia TNC. With our handy guide, your stress can be minimized if you need to carry out the cessation of a company in Singapore. We can handle all your needs for closing down your business while you focus your energy on new horizons, no matter your reason for doing so. If you're looking for a company in Singapore that can help walk you through the company cessation process, you're in the right place. Get in touch with our consultants at Premia TNC and we'll take care of any issues you may have. Appoint us to strike off your company today.